The stagecoach rattled over the dry earth, wheels clattering like loose bones, dust boiling up in its wake. Elias Hargrove stood on his porch, hat brim pulled low, eyes narrowing at the sight. The sun was sinking, laying a copper glare across the plains, heat still clinging stubborn to the air. The driver barely looked at him as he heaved the small wooden crate down with a grunt. Nails jutted rough from its seams, and the wood bore a strange, dark staining, as if it had been left in water too long, or something worse. From Denver, the driver said, breathless, gaze fixed anywhere but Elias's face. Was told to tell you, please don't open it. Before Elias could speak, the whip cracked, and the coach rolled on, swallowed by the dust and the shimmering heat haze. Elias crouched, running his calloused fingers along the crate. The grain felt warped, uneven. A mark had been burned into one side. Not a cattle brand he recognized. It was too crooked, too deliberate. He lifted it, heavier than it looked, and carried it inside. The floorboards creaked under his boots, the house holding the silence like a church between sermons. He set the crate on the kitchen table, the single lamp casting a weak yellow light over it. Outside, the wind scraped through the sagebrush. That night, he sat in his chair by the window, Winchester leaning against the wall. His eyes kept drifting to the table. The lamp's glow turned the crate's shadow into something that seemed to breathe. Then came the sound. At first it was so faint he thought it was a mouse in the walls, a tiny, irregular tap. Then another, and another. It wasn't random. He leaned forward, holding his breath. The tapping was slow, patient like fingertips against wood. His hand hovered near the rifle. The fire in the stove had gone low, shadows pooling in the corners. The tapping stopped. He waited, muscles tight, eyes locked on the crate. The wind moaned across the eaves, rattling the loose pane in the back room. Somewhere out in the dark, a coyote cried, high and thin. The crate stayed still, but Elias couldn't shake the feeling it was listening. The saloon's batwing doors swung inward on a blast of grit and heat. Elias stepped through, dust trailing off his coat, eyes scanning the dim room. Piano music clinked faint in the corner, trying and failing to hide the low murmur of voices. A woman in travel-worn, riding clothes, sat alone near the back. Her hat brim was low, but her eyes, sharp and unblinking, found him before he'd taken 3 steps. A long rifle rested upright against her chair, its barrel worn silver where the bluing had rubbed away. "You get something from Denver?" Her voice cut through the stale air, low but clear. Elias stopped. "Maybe." Her gaze hardened. Small crate. Burn mark on the side. He didn't answer. The piano faltered note, then went on. She leaned forward, voice dropping. "Don't open it. Don't let anyone else open it." The weight in her tone carried more than words, like she'd already seen the ending to this story and didn't care for it. Elias's jaw worked. "You mind telling me why?" "You wouldn't believe me," she said. "But believe this. Last man to open one with that brand didn't last a day. And he didn't die easy." Bootsteps scuffed on the boardwalk outside. Elias turned just enough to catch a flicker through the dusty window. Someone standing across the street, shadow cut long by the setting sun. By the time he looked again, the spot was empty. He bought his supplies without hurry, though every nerve pulled him toward his horse. The woman didn't follow him out, but her eyes did. The ride home stretched long and uneasy. Half a mile from the ranch, he caught movement on the ridgeline, a lone rider keeping pace. Too far for a face, too steady to be casual travel. When the ranch house finally came into view, the light was bleeding from the sky. Hoof prints, fresh and deep, circled the property. Elias stepped inside. The crate sat where he'd left it on the table, shadowed in the failing light. He lit the lamp. The sound came almost at once. Tap, pause, tap, tap. Not frantic, measured, intent. He stood still, the smell of trail dust in his nostrils, the weight of the woman's warning settling in his gut. Elias was already at the window when the first shadow cut across the yard. Moonlight caught the gleam of a revolver, the flash of masked faces. 5 riders, maybe 6, moving in a tight arc toward the porch. The lead horse skidded to a halt in a spray of dirt. The man atop it swung down slow, boots crunching gravel. Jonas Crow. Elias knew the walk, the tilt of the head, the grin that never reached the eyes. "You've got something that belongs to me," Crow called, voice like gravel dragged over steel. Elias stepped out onto the porch, Winchester loose in his hands. "Don't recall taking a thing from you." Crow's smile thinned. "That crate on your table says otherwise." The others fanned out, rifles glinting under the blood-red moon. The horses snorted, breath pluming in the cold night air. Elias didn't move. His hat brim shadowed his eyes, but his stance shifted, weight balanced, feet light. A quiet readiness hummed in his shoulders, the kind that came from years carrying steel and living by it. Crow took a step closer. "You open it." "No." "Good." "Then hand it over." The first shot split the night, Elias's. One of Crow's men dropped where he stood, rifle clattering into the dust. Chaos tore loose. Gunfire cracked sharp against the stillness, the smell of powder rolling heavy through the yard. Elias moved quick, faster than any man his age ought to. He cut left, fired once, twice, each shot finding a target. The years had not rusted his aim. From the ridge came another report, clean, distant. Clara Vance. Her bullets found 2 more riders, sending their horses screaming into the dark. Crow roared, charging the porch. Elias met him at the steps, rifle swinging like a club. They crashed through the door, splinters flying. The crate sat in the center of the room, lamp casting its shadow like a black stain across the floorboards. Crow lunged for it. Elias grabbed his arm, but the outlaw twisted free, boots slamming into Elias's chest. He hit the wall hard, breath leaving in a rush. Crow dropped to one knee, prying at the lid. The nails screamed as would split. "Elias." Clara's voice cut from the doorway. "Don't." The lid came free with a groan. Crow froze. So did Elias. Inside, something shifted. Moonlight spilled through the broken door, silvering the splintered edges of the crate. Inside, a glass jar glimmered under the lamplight, its surface clouded by swirling, black dust that moved as if alive. Crow's grin faltered. "What in God's name?" The dust pressed against the glass, curling and shifting like smoke in water. Elias stepped forward, rifle still in hand, but Clara's voice cut sharp behind him. "Don't touch it." Her boots hit the floorboards, rifle raised. "That ain't just dirt. That's the last of a man who should have stayed buried." Crow laughed, but the sound was thin. "Looks like gold's run out for you, Vance. You're selling ghost stories now." The jar shuddered. The black dust surged, filling every inch of glass, pressing harder, as if it knew the air was close. Clara's voice dropped low. "Once it's out, it finds the nearest soul and takes it. Last time, the host killed 12 men before the day was done." Crow's eyes lit with a kind of hunger. "Then maybe it's about time I had myself a little help." Before Elias could move, Crow smashed the jar against the floor. Glass shattered, and the dust erupted upward like a living thing. It roared without sound, the air turning cold enough to bite. It surged toward Crow, then swerved. Straight into Elias. The force hit like a winter wind through bone. The dust vanished into him, swallowed whole. For a moment he stood still, head bowed, the lamplight trembling. Crow backed away. What are you?" Elias lifted his head. His eyes caught the light in a way they hadn't in years, sharp, hard, dangerous. "Told you once. I buried the iron hand." His voice was calm, even. "But some things don't stay buried. They bury themselves in you." Crow's gun hand shook. Elias stepped forward, slow, deliberate, the floor groaning under his boots. "Run." Crow did. By the time Clara looked back, the yard was empty except for the dead and the settling dust. Elias was gone. No trail, no sound but the wind through the sagebrush. And so the tale grew, of the man who carried a curse in his blood, who walked into the desert one night and never came back. Some say he still rides when the moon is high, watching the ridges, waiting for the day the dust inside him wakes again.